Hey guys, tonight we're going back, way back, to the quiet streets of early 20th century Hanoi. You're not rushing, there's no inbox to check, no last minute Slack pings, just the slow rhythm of motorless mornings. The air smells of damp brick, rotting mango leaves, and something else, something warm, rich, slightly smoky. If your pillow could cook, it might smell like this. You're walking, slowly, maybe it's still a dream, maybe it's real. Your shoes make soft tapping sounds on the uneven stone. You're not looking for anything, but your nose starts tugging you forward. It's the kind of smell that folds into your ribs like a hug you didn't know you missed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments what time it is where you are and what city you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You follow the scent. It's barely past dawn, and the sky is the color of dishwater, the kind that's been used for washing too many bowls. There's a vendor, crouched low to the ground beside a battered tin pot balanced over glowing coals. She doesn't say anything to you. She's slicing scallions with a knife that looks like it was forged during a war, and dropping them into a steaming broth that swirls with fat, pepper, and something floral. You don't know it yet, but that scent, that pho, will follow you across oceans and decades. But right now, it's just soup. A good soup. You crouch like everyone else, knees protesting, and hold out a chipped porcelain bowl. She ladles the broth over soft white noodles, sliced beef, still pink, disappears into the liquid like a memory. She adds herbs, Thai basil, sawtooth coriander, a dash of fish sauce with a lid so crusted it could be mistaken for a rock. You slurp because everyone's slurping. That's the etiquette here. The air fogs your glasses, the bowl warms your hands. You don't know what star anise is, but it's doing something magical inside your mouth. You think, is this cinnamon? And immediately doubt yourself. It doesn't matter. The broth is deep. It makes you feel like you've bitten into a foghorn. This is not a restaurant, it's a corner. A woman with a pot. No sign. No chairs. Just people eating while standing or squatting, trying not to drop noodles on their sleeves. It's not Instagrammable. It's not aesthetic. It's a necessity. But it's also a little miracle. You learn that she's been waking at 3 a.m. to prep the broth since 1962. Or maybe 1952. No one agrees. She says her mother taught her. Her mother said it came from her uncle. And that uncle, he may or may not have traded recipes with a Chinese butcher near the Red River. Historians still argue about it, of course. About when pho really began. Some say it was inspired by French pot au pho. Others say it evolved from Vietnamese beef stews that existed long before baguettes did. But one thing everyone agrees on, the broth mattered. It always did. Your legs start to go numb in the squat, but you can't stop eating. The beef has cooked for you now, gone from pink to gray brown, but still tender, as if it were convinced not to fight back. A nearby child dunks his herbs into your bowl uninvited. You don't mind. The broth clings to the back of your throat. You feel full, but not heavy. There's no MSG in this era, or at least not yet. Just bones, roasted onions, ginger scorched over open fire, and patience. Mostly patience. You finish the bowl. You hand it back. You say thank you. She nods, almost not seeing you, already moving to the next customer. The scent lingers on your clothes. It will stay until the afternoon heat bakes it off your skin. But in your memory, it's already permanent. Somewhere, someone in a starched uniform is writing colonial laws. Somewhere else, a telegram is arriving late. But here, on this curb in Hanoi, you've just had a bowl of soup that would eventually cross an ocean. You don't know it yet, but this is the first time pho touches your life. It won't be the last. The next time pho finds you, it's not in a whispering alley of Hanoi. It's in a bowl slightly too clean, inside a dining room that smells less like firewood and more like linoleum. You've moved, haven't you? Not across oceans, not yet. Just further down time. You're in the 1930s now. Still Vietnam, but different. The city is louder. People wear hats with angles. The broth, it's shifted. You're walking past the storefront with glass windows, a new thing. Behind them, ceiling fans turn lazily, not cooling much of anything. Inside, there are chairs now. Tables, too. You step in gently as though interrupting something sacred. And there it is again. That familiar broth. But wait, it smells different. You sit, you order. The The server is wearing a stiff apron and a watch chain like he should be offering you cognac instead of soup. But he returns with pho and something inside you smiles. You taste it. It's beefier, richer, and yet oddly simpler. You ask the waiter, what's changed? He shrugs. It's just how they do it here. You press. Finally, someone at the next table leans over and says, used to be made with buffalo meat, you know. Buffalo. You blink. He didn't sign up for zoology, but the man nods, pleased to share something. Yeah, before the French came, back when beef was too expensive, too Western. You didn't know that. Most people today don't. But yes, pho's earliest ancestor wasn't even beef-based. It was made with water buffalo, tough meat, gamey, stringy, and sold mostly by Chinese Vietnamese vendors near the river docks. They'd thin it down into a broth, stretch it with rice noodles, maybe top it with offcuts and tripe. Then came the French, and with them, their cattle, their taste for beef. Suddenly beef wasn't rare, it was government regulated. French butchers sold the premium cuts to colonial officials, but the bones went cheap, and so bone broth was born. Or reborn, with fire, with ginger, with time. You sip again, it tastes like adaptation, like survival simmered overnight. You feel history in your teeth. Outside, bicycles jingle past. A newspaper boy calls out headlines you can't quite hear. Inside, the waiter brings over a dish of lime wedges and sliced chili, all arranged too neatly. Someone says pho bejo la fai ba, and you understand pho is becoming what it will be. Pho is beef now, permanently. There's no basil yet, no hoisin sauce, no side plate of bean sprouts, just the broth, the noodles, the meat, and the knowledge that this bowl is no longer just food, it's becoming identity. You watch as a man at the next table drowns his pho in fish sauce. A woman asks for hers with no meat, just broth and noodles. And you notice for the first time that everyone's eating it slightly differently. Pho is personal now. The waiter brings the bill. It's handwritten on a slip of paper. The ink's still drying. You pay with coins that clink like distant bells. As you stand, you glance back at the room. It's still full. People still slurping. Life going on in rhythmic spoon and chopstick movements. You step back into the street. The scent of pho follows you again, this time tangled with exhaust and cigarette smoke. You feel a little full, but also aware you'll be hungry for it again soon. Historians still debate the exact moment pho switched from water buffalo to beef. Some say it was purely economic, others say it was pride, an effort to refine the dish to distance it from poverty. Still others think it was the influence of French cuisine, beef stock, clarity, marrow. But no one agrees. No one ever agrees. And maybe that's what makes pho. You walk on. The sun is higher now, and the day feels heavier, but the broth stays with you, still swirling in your thoughts, still clinging to the corners of your memory like a fog that refuses to lift. And it's only just beginning. You're back on the street. The broth lingers like deja vu on your tongue, but the noise has changed. It's louder now, warmer. The year has shifted again, slipped into the 1950s without telling you. You've moved south. The air is thicker here in Saigon. It smells like ripening jackfruit, melting asphalt, and motorbike oil. But somewhere beneath it all, beneath the shouting street vendors and the radios coughing out pre-war ballads, there's that same thread of scent to the broth. Familiar but suspiciously sweet. You follow your nose because that's how these things work. A small shop front, paint peeling, ceiling fan gasping, draws you in. You sit. Someone hands you a laminated menu, although you don't need it. You already know what you're here for. Pho. But this pho, this pho is not like a noise. You sip. You stop. Your eyebrows try to say something. Your mouth cannot. What is this? It's sweeter, noticeably, like someone stirred in a spoonful of memory and half a cube of sugar. And there are herbs, so many herbs, basil, mint, cilantro, things that look like they might double as mosquito repellent. There's also a little dish with what you swear is lime, not lemon, and bean sprouts, raw, piled like an edible haystack beside your bowl. You blink, you stir, you chew. Welcome to Southern Pho. Historians will one day argue whether this version is true pho, whether Saigon improved it, diluted it, or just adapted it for its own rhythm. You know better than to care. You're toothy crunching bean sprouts between sips of broth that's been brewed in coconut husk-fueled fire. You glance around. The woman next to you is dipping her beef in hoisin and sriracha before adding it to the bowl. The man behind you is squeezing 2 lime wedges into his broth and spooning in chili oil so thick it moves like lava. You try it. It hurts. it's done down here. Maybe it's the southern palate. Maybe it's the influence of Cambodian or Chinese flavors. Maybe the sugar is balancing out something darker, more bitter. Like how people smile louder when the war is too close. Saigon Pho became its own thing because Saigon became its own thing. This was a city of crossroads, of planes and plans and panic. People needed something fast, familiar, and deeply Vietnamese to cling to. Pho was a comfort, a currency, a way to say we're still here. The bowl in front of you isn't just a meal, it's evidence, but it wasn't always welcomed. Northern purists sneered. Too much sugar, they said. Too many herbs, they argued. Some refused to call it pho at all. They whispered the word like it was a slur. Pho Saigon. But food doesn't wait for approval. You add more lime. You're not sure why. It just feels right. The shop owner walks by, balancing 6 bowls in her arms like a magician who gave up card tricks. She looks at your bowl, then at you and nods once, as if to say, you're learning. Outside, scooters howl by. A child chases a dog that doesn't want to be chased, and someone somewhere is selling postcards to American GIs who don't know what pho is but will eat it anyway. Because the war is coming, and pho will survive it. You step out. The humidity hugs you like a damp blanket. Your breath still smells like star anise and beef. You notice now that the Saigon sun is different, less golden, more aggressive. You squint, and then you hear it again. That unmistakable clatter of ladles and ceramic. Somewhere down the next street, another pot is bubbling, else is recreating the broth. Someone who learned it from someone who learned it from someone who maybe added a little more sugar than usual. You smile. The variations don't bother you anymore. In fact, they comfort you, because now you understand. Pho isn't one recipe. It's one story told 1,000 different ways, and you're just getting started. You wake up before the sun, not because you want to, but because there's a strange silence pressing on the air, a pre-dawn stillness that feels like it's waiting for something to break. You're in Hanoi again, but not the same Hanoi. It's the 1940s. The city is thinner, worn out, quiet in the way a place becomes after too many goodbyes. You step outside. The sky is a dull, bruised gray. Your breath fogs the air, and for a moment, it feels like the city itself is exhaling with you. You walk slowly. You're not looking for pho. You're not even sure if anyone's serving it anymore, but that scent again, lighter this time, stretching itself thinner than before, like an old blanket trying to cover too many people. You follow it. You find a vendor. No sign, no stool, no smile, just a pot. And you know immediately, something's changed. You sit automatically. The woman ladles broth into a chipped bowl, lather hands moving slowly like they're underwater. There's no meat in the soup, not even much fat, just a cloudy broth, white rice noodles, and a pinch of green onions so small you think she must be rationing hope. You sip. It's warm. That's the best you can say. The flavor is thin, like someone whispered beef over the pot instead of using bones. You glance at her questioningly. She shrugs, her shoulders barely rising. Kon kon banu, she murmurs. There's no beef anymore. You nod. You knew that. During wartime, everything changes, and pho is not immune. Meat is scarce, rice is rationed, salt is political. You learn that people have started using sweet potatoes in place of noodles, stretching the broth with MSG or soy powder when they can find it. Sometimes even dried banana peels boiled down to fake the flavor of beef. You try not to taste that. Some say pho thai chien isn't really pho. Others say it's the truest version because it proves pho isn't defined by ingredients but by intention. It's a structure that holds even when everything else falls apart. You sip again. It's not good, but it's warm. You look around. Others are eating too. No one speaks. They just chew and swallow and keep their heads low. The air smells like coal smoke and loss. Historians still debate whether this wartime version of pho should be remembered. Some say it was an insult to the dish. Others say it was resilience in a bowl. But you don't think in debates. You think in feelings. And right now, your bowl feels the quackhead. Keep going. You finish the broth. There wasn't much. The vendor pours a cup of warm water over your empty bowl to rinse it, then hands it to the next person. There's no money exchanged. Just a nod. A small, tired bow. You get up. The streets are still quiet, but there's a different kind of energy now. A stubborn one. People are cooking with what little they have, feeding each other, showing up before sunrise. They're keeping pho alive. Not for flavor, for memory, for continuity. You walk back to where you're staying. Your clothes smell faintly of weak broth and coal ash. You don't mind. You understand now. Pho isn't always delicious. Sometimes it's just necessary. Tomorrow, maybe there'll be more noodles. Maybe not. Maybe someone will find a bone and bring it to boil. Or maybe the broth will be water and salt and faith. Either way, Pho will be there, waiting. This time, the sound finds you before the scent. It's a radio somewhere behind a thin metal shutter playing a song that sounds like a love letter to a city you haven't yet met. You're in Saigon again, but it's different now. The war has torn open the calendar, and when the pages settle, it's 1955. Everything feels newer and older at once. New government, old buildings, new uniforms, old wounds, and amidst it all, Pho has arrived too. But it's not the refugee. It's the headliner. You step into a cafe that also happens to serve Pho, because in this city, everything serves Pho. Car garages, laundromats, hair salons with one chair and an open pot in the back. You sit by a window that doesn't close properly, and someone brings you a menu that smells like cigarette smoke and chili oil. You already know what you're ordering. The broth arrives before the bowl does. You inhale, and you pause. It smells like the north, but shinier, brighter. It's familiar and foreign at the same time, like hearing your name in a different accent. And then the bowl is in front of you. Clear, golden broth. Beef slices so thin they look like silk, and a lot of garnishes. Basil, mint. A full stock of sawtooth coriander that look like it came from a jungle documentary. You're handed a plate of lime wedges and chili slices so red they seem animated. And there it is again. The sweetness. You sip, and the broth sings. It's not sugary sweet. It's not dessert. It's the kind of sweetness that shows up in the back of your throat and makes everything else feel smoother. It dances with the salt. It plays with the spices. You didn't ask for this. Saigon just gave it to you anyway. You notice the noodles are slightly wider. They melt on your tongue. The beef is rare, still pink, still quivering. You push it gently beneath the broth to finish cooking it, like tucking it in. Someone offers you hoisin sauce and sriracha in a small dish. You hesitate, then you try. You dip a piece of beef. You don't hate it. You look around. The place is full of suits and uniforms, lovers and loners. Someone's talking politics behind you. Someone else is asleep on the table, head beside an empty bowl. A waitress slides by and whispers, "Then mine pho comb. More noodles." You nod. You don't need more. But this version of pho, it doesn't ask permission. It just expands. Southern pho is bolder, brighter, sweeter, louder, like the city that shaped it. Historians still argue whether this was a natural evolution or a regional rebellion. Some claim the added sugar came from Chinese influences. Others say it was just what people had, southern Vietnam being agriculturally richer, with more access to ingredients that the North lacked. You think maybe they just liked it that way, and suddenly you're not comparing anymore. You're just enjoying. The drop of broth slides down your chin. A basil leaf clings to your spoon. You add a squeeze of lime and the flavor snaps into focus. It's not better than Hanoi Pho. It's not worse. It's just this. You overhear someone at the next table say, "Pho Saigon la phai ko rao." Pho in Saigon needs herbs. You don't argue. You've stopped arguing with your bowl. It knows more than you do. You finish your noodles. The broth is too good to leave, so you tilt the bowl and sip straight from it. No one judges you. They're all doing the same. Outside, the city hums. A cyclo rolls past. Someone is selling pressed sugarcane juice in plastic bags. But inside, you're still swimming in that broth, trying to name every note. Clove, star anise, toasted coriander seed. You think so? You step back into the street. The heat wraps around you like a curtain. Your shirt clings. Your lips are tingling. You smile. Southern pho isn't a variation anymore. It's a declaration. And you've just swallowed it whole. You're walking through Jala now. The kind of walk where your feet know where they're going before your mind catches up. The streets are tight here, narrow like secrets. You smell incense, soy, engine grease, and then faint but distinct, the unmistakable echo of simmering bones. You stop. There's no sign outside. Just a doorway with red paper strips peeling at the corners and a plastic curtain that sticks to your arms when you brush through it. Inside, a kitchen disguised as a dining room, or maybe the other way around. Pots the size of bathtubs, stacks of bowls balancing like ceramic Jenga, and behind it all, a man in a sleeveless tank top, face glistening, hands moving like he's playing piano underwater. You sit without being asked. This isn't the kind of place where they offer you options. You get what's good. And what's good is what he says is good. He doesn't speak much, just a nod when you order, then a long silence while he assembles the bowl. You notice something odd. There's no measuring, no timer, no thermometer, just his hands, and the ladle, and the pot, so dark and opaque it might as well be made of secrets. The broth hits your bowl with a quiet glug. The smell rises up, and instantly it feels heavier than others you've had. Not because of fat, but because of depth. Like this broth knows things, like it's seen things. You sip and immediately taste something else. Not beef, not chicken, not even bones. Memory. There's something caramelized, a hint of something dry and almost bitter, like burnt onion or toasted spices that were left on the pan half a second too long. You ask him what's in it. He stares at you for a second, then says, simply, Kukaiko, dried daikon. You nod slowly. You didn't expect that. It adds umami without being obvious, a kind of whispery richness that sticks around longer than it should. You keep eating. Then you notice something else. The cutting board. It's old, like really old, dark wood, rounded edges, stained in a way no bleach could ever undo. You ask how long he's been using it. He doesn't answer, but someone at the next table leans over and whispers, 50 years. You laugh. They nod. Dead serious. He says it adds flavor. You stare at the board again. It's not just a cutting surface. It's a diary. Every groove, a chapter, every stain, a seasoning. He's never cleaned it with soap, just hot water in a cloth. Sometimes salt, never bleach. You sip again. Maybe he's right. Historians don't talk about this kind of thing. No footnote mentions well-seasoned cutting boards or secret daikon hacks. But here, in this steam-thick room, you understand that pho isn't just broth and noodles. It's habits, repetition, tools touched by decades of hands. You finish your bowl slower this time. You're not just eating, you're studying. Each bite feels curated. Not fancy, never that. Just intentional. You ask for another bowl. He raises an eyebrow, nods, and makes it the same way. Exactly. Not because he's trying, because he can't help it. This is how he learned from his mother, who learned from her cousin, who learned from a street vendor, who may or may not have made soup for a colonial governor once, back when water was boiled over coconut shells and money meant nothing. You pay in cash. He doesn't count it, just folds it into his apron like you were part of the wallpaper. You step back outside, the sky is dimming, or maybe your eyes are. You walk back through Cholon, the streets glowing with red lanterns and flickering neon. Your breath still smells like roasted spices and daikon memory. You don't know what he put in that broth, not really, but part of you is still sitting there, watching the ladle rise again. It starts with a suitcase that doesn't close. You're at a dock, somewhere humid, somewhere tense. A crowd gathers, eyes full of everything they're leaving and nothing they're sure they're heading toward. The year is 1975, and you can feel history pulsing under your feet like an engine idling too loud. You've packed what matters. Documents, a photo or two, gold hidden in the lining of a shirt. But before zipping that bulging suitcase shut, before giving in to the logic of space, you do something unexpected. You slide in a small plastic bag. Inside, a bundle of dried rice noodles and a folded sheet of wax paper holding cloves, cinnamon, black cardamom, star anise, the ingredients for pho. You're not the only one. You notice someone else with the same glint in their bag, a packet labeled GOV Pho in fading red ink. Someone else clutches a tin pot with a cracked lid like it's an heirloom. Someone else whispers about needing to find dried onions before they're gone. No one brings furniture, but people bring soup. And not because they're hungry, because they're scared of forgetting. As you're bored, you realize something strange. No one is crying. There's too much to carry. Grief takes up space. Days pass. Ocean, salt, horizon. The rocking never stops. You lose track of how long it's been since land. Some sleep in shifts, some don't sleep at all. You open your bag one night, quietly, not to use anything, just to feel it. You touch the packet of pho spices like it's a letter from home. Your fingers come away smelling faintly like anise and pepper. It makes your stomach twist, not from hunger, from homesickness. Eventually you reach land, somewhere, but it's not home. It's a camp. Galang, Batan, Pulau Bidong. The names blur. What you remember is the layout. The communal mess hall, the metallic clang of ladles on dented aluminum trays, the smell of rice porridge that always tasted like not enough. But then, a whisper spreads. Someone's making pho. Not real pho, you're told. Camp pho, emergency pho. You follow the rumor. The kitchen is a corner of the camp where someone's built a makeshift stove out of bricks in desperation. There's a battered pot on top, steam barely escaping the bed lid. You crouch next to the others. A man ladles something murky into your bowl. It's not clear. It's not fragrant. It's barely hot, but you sip anyway, and you close your eyes, because somehow even here, on this patch of dirt that doesn't know your name, you recognize something. The hint of star anise, the salt, the warmth. Someone asked what kind of meat is in it. The cook shrugs. Chakla ga, hok kao, probably chicken or canned mackerel. No one complains. You eat it slowly, like a ritual, like it will keep your language from slipping away. Historians rarely write about what people brought with them when they fled. They mention passports, gold, letters, but not dried noodles, not soup spices, not the old dented pot someone strapped to their back while running through the airport. But those things came too. You finish your bowl. You don't speak. No one does. The wind rustles through the tarp overhead. Someone's baby hiccups. A woman wipes her bowl clean with a scrap of bread. It's not much, but it's still pho. And as the night comes down over the camp and the lights flicker like they're afraid of being noticed, you fall asleep with the taste still clinging to your teeth, like home trying to remember you back. The air smells different in America. Not worse, not better. Just cleaner, in a way that unsettles you, like walking into a hospital where everything's white and nothing's familiar. You've just arrived. Southern California, late 1970s. Orange groves and strip malls. Fast food signs taller than temples. The streets too wide, the sky too empty. You live in a house that isn't really yours, with people who aren't really family but are trying hard to be. The mattress on the floor squeaks when you turn. The heater makes a clicking sound you can't trace. And the fridge hums like it's warning you about something. But one day, in the middle of all this dislocation, you wake up early, body still on Saigon time, and decide to cook something. You open your suitcase. There it is. That same bag of jammy pho. A little torn now, the plastic stiff from the cold air, but the smell escapes when you unfold it. And suddenly, you're not just homesick, you're soup sick. You ask your host if there's a pot, he brings you a crock pot. You blink. You don't know what it is. He tells you it's how Americans make stew. You hesitate, then shrug. Stew is stew, soup is soup. You plug it in. It hums like the fridge. You toast the spices over a tiny gas flame. The smell is too strong for this quiet suburban kitchen. It lingers like an argument. Someone peeks in to ask what's burning. You say nothing's burning. Everything's beginning. You pour in water. Add the beef bones. The meat you found was prepackaged, wrapped in styrofoam and plastic, labeled with stickers and strange English words. You chose the ones that looked like brisket, or close enough. There's no onion to char. So you broil one. It doesn't smell right. You drop everything in. It begins to bubble. And for the first time in weeks, you feel like yourself again. Hours pass. You don't rush it. You know better. Pho can smell your impatience. You skim the surface, add a bit of fish sauce, then another. The brand isn't right. It's too sweet, too pale, but you work with what you have. Someone walks by and stops. What's that smell? You look up, unsure how to explain. You just say soup. They nod. Smells good. You nod back. It will be. Dinner that night is quiet. You serve it in shallow bowls because there are no deep ones. You cut the noodles with kitchen scissors because they're too long for the forks. Someone adds parsley. You raise an eyebrow. They smile sheepishly. It's green. You slurp anyway. And it works. It's not perfect. The broth's a little flat. The meat too lean. The noodles too soft. But it's pho. It's still pho. You look around the table. Everyone's eating like they're afraid it'll be taken away. No one's talking, just the sound of metal forks scraping ceramic. It's different, sure. The air here doesn't have coal smoke or scooter fumes. The ceiling fan doesn't buzz like in Kowloon. No one shouts stem rasong from the back. But you know now, pho doesn't need the right room, just the right person cooking. Historians don't write about crock-pot pho. They don't talk about first-generation kitchens, where fish sauce lived next to peanut butter and soy sauce sat beside ketchup. They skip past the awkward years, the clumsy substitutions, the the missing herbs, the borrowed pots, but this is where the broth took root. And kitchen's too cold, with noodles too soft and love poured in anyway. You finish your bowl. The house still smells like pho long after the dishes are dry. You smile just a little. It'll get better next time. You're in Orange County now, and it's the 1980s. The sky is too blue. The streets are lined with palm trees that look like they're posing for a travel brochure. Strip malls stretch endlessly in all directions like concrete plains with neon borders. Somewhere between a laundromat and a video rental store, you spot it. A red-lettered sign that reads, PA Shop. Just that, nothing more. You stop. Your chest does a small, involuntary thing, somewhere between hope and skepticism. You step inside and the smell hits you first. Not just beef, but intent. Someone meant this broth. It isn't accidental. It isn't Vietnamese-style noodle soup. It's pho, real, hot, familiar. There's a hum in the room. Not the hum of electricity, but of community. The quiet clatter of chopsticks, the low murmur of Vietnamese spoken across 3 generations. You realize this isn't just a restaurant, it's a landing zone. You sit near the back. The server glances at you like she's seen 20 of you already today, and hands you a menu that's laminated and slightly sticky. You don't need it. You order the same thing you always order. Pho Thai, a little rare beef, medium noodles. She nods and disappears. You watch her go with a kind of reverence. You don't know who she is, but you know what she's doing. A few minutes pass. You take in the details. The walls are pastel yellow. The tables are the kind that wobble slightly when elbows rest too hard. There's a bottle of hoisin sauce with a crusty lid, and a squeeze bottle of sriracha that's lost its cap. Your bowl arrives. It's steaming. The broth is clearer than you expected. Golden. Light dances on its surface. The beef is sliced impossibly thin and blushes under the heat. The noodles are springy. The herbs come in a basket you're pretty sure was once used for mail. You squeeze lime, add chili, ring herbs with your hands. Then you eat. You eat like you haven't eaten in years, because this bowl, this exact bowl, is a bridge. You're here, but you're also there, somewhere on a curb in Hanoi and again in a smoky stall in Saigon. You're at a refugee camp, a crock-pot kitchen, a midnight snack table surrounded by cousins and quiet radio. The broth tastes like past lives and future plans. You look around. The room is full now. Teenagers with California accents arguing over who gets the last piece of brisket. Old men in faded army jackets reading Vietnamese newspapers. Young couples sharing pho like it's a love language. You feel something else rising in you. Not nostalgia exactly, something gentler. Belonging. Historians may one day point to this moment, this decade, as when pho arrived in America, when it became visible, marketable, when it started slipping into newspapers and food columns with phrases like Vietnamese beef noodle soup makes its mark. But what they miss is what you see now. Pho didn't arrive to impress. It arrived to comfort, and comfort doesn't need headlines. You sip the last of your broth. The server takes your bowl without asking if you're done. She knows. You pay in cash. It's $3.95s. You tip with what little extra you have. She nods once, and that nod feels like a shared secret. You step out into the sunlight. It's too bright, too dry, too loud. But your stomach is warm, your breath smells like cloves, and your past has been folded into your present like a sprig of basil in broth. You walk past the video rental store, the nail salon, the check cashing place. You smile. Pho is here now, officially, and it brought you with it. It happens quietly. The first time you see someone eat pho wrong. You're sitting in a booth. It's early, weekday, post-sunrise, pre-lunch. The restaurant's half empty, which is when the regulars come. The older men reading Vietnamese newspapers, the couple that always splits one bowl and 2 iced coffees, the table of aunties who order extra bang quay and talk too loud about nothing, and then they walk in. Tourists? No. Locals, but not your kind of local. Pale skin, gym shorts in winter, sunglasses on top of their heads like backup eyebrows. They slide into the booth across from you like they've done this before, but something's off. They pick up the menu, you glance over. They're pointing at the words like they're trying to cast spells. Pho, one of the masks. Is it pronounced pho? You flinch. Not visibly, but inside something recoils. A tiny part of your soul knocks over a stool. Then it begins. The order goes in. One of these beef noodles, and do you guys have forks? You watch. Not in judgment. Not exactly. More like anthropology. You're not mad. Just fascinated. The bowls arrive, steam curls upward, beautiful and fragrant. They stare at it like it's a science experiment. One of them pokes at the basil. Do I eat the leaves? Another pours in half the bottle of hoisin. Someone else adds sriracha, stirs it, tastes it, and says, ooh, spicy ketchup. You die. Just a little. Then comes the chopsticks, held like drumsticks, noodles lifted like tangled seaweed, slurping so tentative it sounds apologetic, and worst of all, most of all in the broth. They're treating the soup like it's just wet noodles. You want to say something, you don't. You just go back to your own bowl where the herbs have married into the broth, where each squeeze of lime is intentional, where every slurp is a return to something true. You sip. The broth reminds you who you are. But then something unexpected happens. One of them, the woman in the gray hoodie, takes another bite. Slower this time. Then a sip. Her eyes widen just a little. This is really good, she says. The others nod. A new quiet settles, and you realize something. Everyone's first pho is awkward. You remember your first time too. How you burned your tongue, how you didn't know which herbs were edible, how someone had to show you not to eat the lime whole, how the broth was so new, so bold, you weren't sure if it was food or a memory you hadn't unlocked yet. Historians will say pho reached mainstream American consciousness in the late 80s and early 90s, that it became part of the multicultural food boom, categorized, indexed, served alongside sushi and pad thai under ethnic cuisine. But they won't say how people learned to eat it, that there were forks before chopsticks, that hoisin was used like soup base, that people called it pho, with confidence and thought pine pho was a type of spaghetti. You sip again, and you soften. Across the room, the group is quieter now, still clumsy but respectful. They're chewing more slowly. The woman in the hoodie leans in and whispers, I think I get it now. You smile. Pho isn't a test, it's an invitation, and like any good bowl of broth, it gives you time. Time to get it wrong, time to come back, time to understand that what looks simple is actually ancient. You finish your bowl. As you get up to leave, you pass their table. You pause. You nod. The woman in the hoodie nods back. A soft smile, a little broth on her chin. You step outside. The sun is higher now, the wind cooler. The smell of star anise clings to your sleeves. And somewhere behind you, a mispronounced pho just became someone's new favorite comfort food. It starts with a flyer, taped lopsided on a bulletin board at UCLA, between an ad for used textbooks and someone selling a barely working microwave. Vietnamese Student Association, Pho fundraiser this Friday. Come try the soup everyone mispronounces. You smirk when you see it. At least they're self-aware. You decide to go. It's held in the corner of a student quad where the grass is always either too dry or too damp. Folding tables, cheap plastic chairs, giant aluminum pots steaming like confused dragons. And behind it all, the students in matching t-shirts trying to cook like their moms taught them, but on borrowed burners. You stand in line. The guy in sunglasses is explaining to his friend it's like ramen but beefy, and you put leaves in it. You resist the urge to correct him. At the front, a student with dyed hair and a ladle smiles wide. One bowl, she asks. You nod. It's $5. You hand over a crumpled bill. She hands you a styrofoam bowl with noodles, broth, a slice of lime, and herbs that look like they came from a community garden. You sit on the edge of a planter and eat. And the first sip. It's not bad. It's not home either. But you weren't expecting it to be. You taste the ambition, the effort. The ginger is too strong. The broth is a little undersalted. The meat is overcooked. But still, something about it makes you close your eyes. Across the lawn, a group of students gathers around a single table, taking selfies with their bowls. One girl holds up her chopsticks like it's a noodle waterfall. Another adds so much sriracha it looks like a crime scene. You hear someone say, I thought pho was like just noodles. Another replies, no, it's like Vietnamese soul food. You smile, not bad. Then something happens you didn't expect. A white student, maybe second year, flannel shirt, backwards cap, walks up to the volunteer table and says, my mom's Vietnamese, I've eaten this my whole life. You look up, he says it like a confession, or maybe a badge. I've never cooked it though. The girl with the ladle smiles. Want to help stir? He shrugs. Yeah, sure. And just like that, someone new joins the pot. Historians won't mention this fundraiser. It won't be footnoted in articles about the globalization of Vietnamese cuisine. But these events are where it really spreads. Not just pho, but ownership of pho. Not just what it is, who it belongs to, because something shifts when students start cooking it themselves. When second-gen kids recreate their mom's recipes using dorm-approved rice cookers and thrifted pots. When food isn't just eaten, it's performed, shared, translated. You finish your bowl, you toss your styrofoam into a bin already overflowing with spoons and napkins stained with hoisin fingerprints. As you leave, someone calls out, "Hey, you forgot your raffle ticket." You turn. For what? Free pho for a year. You laugh. I've already had that. They don't get it, but you do. Because pho isn't something you win. It's something you carry. And on this college lawn, surrounded by borrowed tables and sauce bottles missing their lids, you realize it's being carried further than you ever imagined. By students who speak Vietnamese with an accent. By friends who only know pho as that soup you eat when you're sick. By kids who call their parents to ask, "Wait, how do you toast the spices again?" It's not perfect, but it's moving. And that counts. You see before you smell it this time. A wooden sign, weathered and sun-bleached, the paint curling at the edges like dried parchment. Pho Hua, it reads, hand-painted in bold red letters, slightly uneven, slightly proud. No subtitle, no description, just that name. It sits between a check cashing place and a nail salon right in the middle of Little Saigon, Garden Grove, California, late 1980s. You're walking through a plaza that looks like it was built entirely out of good intentions and fading stucco. The asphalt parking lot is cracked. Someone's car alarm chirps every time a bird flies by. But inside that quiet shop front, something remarkable is happening. You step in. The door chimes, a sound not meant to be polite, just to make sure someone knows you're here. The air inside is warm and humid, the windows fogged with years of broth-scented condensation. The walls are off-white, decorated with calendars from Vietnamese banks, laminated photos of beef cuts, and a dusty clock that's been wrong since 1983. It smells like real pho. Burnt onion, clove, star anise, a bone marrow hum that fills your lungs and makes your spine straighten. You don't sit right away. You just stand for a second, letting the smell settle on your shoulders like an old coat. The owner looks up. He's older than you expected. Apron smeared with broth, hands calloused, eyes sharp but kind. He doesn't smile, just nods. You sit at a plastic table with a tin container of utensils that clink when you pull them out. There's a napkin dispenser so overstuffed that it's basically ornamental. You glance at the menu. 2 pages, laminated, full of options that feel like code. Pho Thai, Pho Nam, Pho Gun, Pho Sach. You point. He nods again. 5 minutes later, the bowl arrives. It's not pretty, no floral garnish, no artful sprigs, no attempted symmetry. Just raw beef folding into hot broth, scallions floating like confetti from a party that left early. But the smell, you know before you taste it. It's right. The first sip is like a door opening in your chest, not because it's perfect, but because it doesn't try to be anything else. You eat slowly. Each bite feels like a verse in a song you haven't heard in years, but somehow remember the words to. No one here takes photos. No one poses. Everyone's heads are down, bowls tilted slightly, slurping in harmony. The only music is the clink of spoons, the sigh of noodles being lifted. You notice the sign above the kitchen, Chia Trien, family recipe. You ask the owner after you finish how long he's been making pho. He wipes his hands on his apron, looks at you and says, "Since before your parents met." You believe him. He tells you he brought the recipe over in his head. No paper, no instructions, just years of repetition. He started this place in 1982 with borrowed money and a second-hand pot. For the first 6 months, no one came. Then someone did. Then someone else. Now people come from 3 cities away just to taste the broth that hasn't changed since the fall of Saigon. You ask if he ever wrote the recipe down. He shakes his head. No need. I don't forget. Historians love to talk about the first wave of Vietnamese immigrants, about how communities formed around food, about cultural preservation through cuisine. But they rarely mention Pho Hua, or the dozens of other tiny pho shops just like it. Not chain restaurants, not food trucks, just simple places with plastic stools and homemade chili sauce that could dissolve a license plate. You stand to leave. You thank him. He nods again, hands you a toothpick like it's a parting gift. Outside, the sky has softened. The sun droops lower, washing the strip mall in a golden glaze that makes the peeling paint look poetic. You look back. The The sign is crooked, the lights flicker, the window fogs again, and you think this is it. This is the bowl that kept the culture warm while everything else tried to forget it. Not pretty, not perfect, just right. It begins in a garage, not the kind with tools and oil stains and a dusty ping pong table. No, this one's cleaner, more clinical. 2 freezers hum in the corner, shelves stacked with gallon-sized Ziploc bags, each one carefully labeled with a date and a 3-letter code, PDX, SJC, ATL. You're standing there holding a bag full of brownish gold liquid, frozen solid. It's broth, faux broth, frozen. You blink. This got shipped. The man next to you is second generation and fluent in English, only semi-fluent in Vietnamese. Grins. Overnight. Wrapped in foil, dry ice. We send to cities that don't have good pho. Yet. You stare at the bag. It's beautiful in its own way, like a time capsule. You rotate it in your hands and read the small label. Pho ball, buck style, 24-inch simmer, MSG free, bones from California ranch. You're not sure whether to be impressed or offended, but this is real. This is happening. This is the pho that moves in pans, that crosses state lines in boxes, that lands in restaurants, pop-ups, small family kitchens from Georgia to Oregon to God knows where in Iowa. This is pho dong goi, packaged pho, and it is changing everything. The broth is made in bulk now, still slow, still steeped overnight, but in larger pots, with systems, with spreadsheets, with health code binders and batch labels and standard operating procedures. You're watching pho become logistics. You ask, doesn't it lose something? He shrugs, maybe, but it gains something too. Reach. You're skeptical, then curious, then hungry. He brings out a pot he drops in the frozen brick. You hear it crackle as it meets the flame. Slowly it melts. The room starts to smell like Hanoi again, like Saigon, like someone's mother has returned from a decade away. You sip a spoonful straight from the ladle. It's good. It's not the dusty corner shop, not the smoky alley stall, but it's close. Very close. You ask how many cities they ship to now. He pulls out a notepad, flips through. 17, maybe 20 by next month. You whistle. He nods. They want it, even if they don't know they want it. Historians might one day refer to this moment as the pho distribution revolution, but they'll miss the details. They'll miss the hours spent pouring broth into bags by hand, measuring the ratio of beef fat to gelatin, hap-taste testing batches at 2 a.m. in someone's garage, while their uncle snores in the next room. They'll miss the first dry ice disaster, the USPS delay, the package that burst in Boise, the customer in Kansas who cried over the phone because this tasted like his grandmother. You finish your cup of broth. You didn't even need the noodles. The broth was enough. This is how pho expands now, not by opening restaurants, but by closing zip-top bags and shipping identity across time zones. You leave the garage, the sun's going down, the scent clings to your shirt. You wonder where it'll end up next. Maybe Minneapolis, maybe Dallas, maybe a college dorm in Ohio where someone will heat it up and taste Vietnam for the first time. You smile, pho is moving, and the broth, still hot, still sacred, is catching flights. You hear about it on the internet first, a thread on a message board titled Best Soup You've Never Tried, Vietnamese Pho. The guy from Wisconsin posts a blurry photo of a half-eaten bowl. The caption reads, "It's like ramen, but better." You wince, but you keep reading. A reply says, "This stuff changed my life." Another says, "Can someone explain what the black licorice smell is?" And then someone posts a link to a blog titled, "Broke College Kid Tries Pho for the First Time." You click. The video opens with a dorm room, a kid in pajama pants, and a steaming takeout bowl of pho sitting on a wobbly desk next to an open laptop and an empty energy drink. He pokes at the noodles, smells the broth, takes a sip, freezes, then whispers like it's a revelation, "Why has no one told me about this?" You smile. Welcome, Internet. It's the early 2000s. The dial-up era is fading. Forums and early food blogs are rising. Pho is stepping into a new world, not through storefronts or flyers or family kitchens, but pixels. You see it spreading. In food photography blogs where the lighting is always too orange and the captions too earnest. In MySpace bulletins and GeoCities recipe pages. Even in online fan fiction where someone's OC drinks pho before saving the world. You scroll through pages of misspelled pho and pho and faux jokes. And still, the broth cuts through. Someone posts a photo. First time making it myself. 4 hours of simmering and my whole apartment smells like cloves and regret. You chuckle and nod. Because yes, if your apartment doesn't smell like ancient spices and a faint sense of doubt, you probably didn't do it right. A few weeks later, pho shows up in a BuzzFeed-style list. Top 10 Asian foods you have to try before you die or graduate college. Right there between bubble tea and pad see ew. You roll your eyes, but your heart softens because maybe they're finally seeing it. Not just the taste, but the care, the time, the bones, the language in the ladle. Historians will call this the start of pho's digital era. The moment it stopped being just an immigrant dish and started becoming internet canon. But don't miss how clumsy it was at first. How early YouTube cooking tutorials mixed up coriander with cardamom. How someone tried making instant pho with ramen packets and 5-spice powder and Mountain Dew. Yes, that happened. You see it all. You see a girl in Montana who's never left her hometown write a blog post about how pho became her favorite comfort food. You see a guy in Toronto who adds it to his dating profile, loves dogs, long walks, and a big bowl of pho. You see emojis and hashtags. Pho lover, broth is life, Vietnamese is soup magic. You sip your own bowl. Still hot. Still fragrant, still real, and laugh gently into the steam. It's messy, this online love, but it's love. And pho, well, pho is patient. Let them call it pho for a while. Let them drown it in sriracha and eat it with forks in dorm rooms filled with LED lights and anime posters. Because what matters is that it's reaching them. One slurp, one post, one badly lit photo at a time. And when they're ready, really ready, they'll find the real thing. Not just on the screen, but in a bowl that speaks to something deeper, something boiling, something home. It's hot. The asphalt kind of hot, where your flip-flops stick to the ground if you stand too long. You're at a food festival in downtown Los Angeles, early 2000s, surrounded by grilled cheese trucks, taco fusions, and something called artisanal corn dogs. And then you see it, a booth with a vinyl banner that reads, Pho King Amazing. You've grown, instantly, viscerally, but you walk toward it anyway. The line is long, a mix of foodies, influencers before we called them that, tourists with bucket hats, and locals who clearly know what they're doing. Everyone's sweating, everyone's holding a phone, everyone's ready to try something they've already decided they'll love. You get to the front. Behind the booth, two Vietnamese American 20-somethings are wearing matching aprons. One's shouting orders, the other is ladling broth into compostable bowls with the precision of a surgeon. The menu isn't complicated. 3 options: pho ball classic, pho ga light, vegan pho nominal. You sigh again. You go classic, no substitutions. You pay too much, but you wait because the smell is right. You get your bowl. It's compact, stylized. A handful of thinly sliced beef, microgreens instead of herbs, a lime wedge that looks like it trained its soul cycle. But the broth is whispering. You sit on a curb, chopsticks in hand, elbows on knees. The crowd swirls around you like a tide of tank tops and stroller wheels and synth pop from a nearby DJ booth. You take a sip, and it's good. Really good. Not your aunt's, not your childhood, but honest, confident, balance between trendy and traditional. The broth has body, the meat is tender, and even the little vegan version. You overhear someone say, it tastes like soul in a cup. You smile, because this is it. Pho entering the spotlight. Not just the immigrant corner shop anymore, not just for homesick hearts, but front and center, on tasting menus, on Yelp, on best of lists in glossy magazines. You glance around, there's a guy live streaming his first bite. A woman explaining to her friend what star anise probably is. A kid shouting Pho King spicy while waiting a napkin. And somewhere behind you, someone says, I had this in Vietnam, it's better here. You roll your eyes so hard you nearly lose a contact. Historians might note this moment as a shift, the day pho went mainstream gourmet. But you see something else. You see a generation remixing their heritage, taking their parents' recipes and folding them into something portable, photogenic, scalable. Pho by the gallon, pho with QR codes, pho with brand identity and custom labels. It's different, sure, but not disrespectful. It's a love letter, typed in all caps with a pun in the subject line. And most importantly, it still slaps. You finish your bowl, wipe your forehead with the back of your hand. The sun's still high, the crowd's still hungry. You throw away the compostable bowl, wondering how long until pho is served in mason jars or frozen into popsicles for modern reinterpretation. But you're not mad, because pho's still here, loud, proud, slightly overpriced, and somehow still honest. You walk away, still tasting broth on your tongue, still carrying something ancient in a festival plastic spoon. It's 2 a.m. in an apartment that smells like desperation and old textbooks. While you're standing in front of the fridge, door open, light buzzing, eyes blurry. You're not looking for anything in particular, just that late night ritual of believing food might solve everything. And then you spot it. Back corner, wrapped 3 times in plastic wrap, inside a reused yogurt container with a label that reads Mamu. In angry red Sharpie, you slide it out slowly, like diffusing a bomb. Not because of what's in it, but because of what's next to it. Nook Mum, fish sauce, unopened, unforgiving, unwelcome. You pause, stare at it like an old enemy. The bottle sweats slightly even though the fridge is cold. It smells like salt and memory even before the cap is off. You already know what's coming. The roommate will smell it. The whole apartment will smell it. The entire building might file a complaint. But you're craving something real, something warm, so you make the decision. Pho, not fancy pho, not grandma level broth, just enough. You fill a pot with water, toss in the leftover bones you saved from that barbecue place, add an onion, burn it over the gas flame with a fork like a tiny arsonist, toss in a few spices from the Ziploc in the back of your cabinet. The star anise looks like it's been in a war. Then the fish sauce. You unscrew the cap. A plop, a wave, a crime. It hits the air like a declaration of war. You know it's too much. You don't care. Your roommate opens their door and immediately slams it shut again. Somewhere upstairs, someone says, "What is that?" You stir gently. You call it defense. The smell is sharp enough to feel, but under it, there's truth. The pho isn't great, the broth is shallow, but it's hot, it's salty. It reminds your mouth that it still knows something important. You pour it into a mug, not a bowl, no time for that. You slurp. It hits like a memory you didn't know was still waiting. Pho at 2 a.m., no basil, no lime, no patience, just heat and salt and steam and home. Historians don't talk about these bowls, the ones made from scraps and loneliness. They don't write about pho cooked on hot plates in dorm rooms or diluted with chicken bouillon cubes because someone forgot to buy beef bones. They skip the part where someone texts their mom, "How long do I boil ginger again?" Where the broth smells too strong and still somehow not strong enough. They forget the nights when pho isn't an event, it's a survival instinct. You sip again. The smell hasn't gone away. If anything, it's gotten stronger. You light a candle. It smells like vanilla and failure. But the soup works. And as you sit on the floor, knees hugged to your chest, bowl balanced dangerously in one hand, you think, this isn't gourmet. This isn't Instagram. This isn't even good. But it's yours. You finished it without noticing. The broth coats your lips. The salt lingers. You put the bowl in the sink and vow to clean it tomorrow. Probably. You crack the window to vent the fish sauce ghosts, but secretly, you kind of like the smell. It's a cooking class, a trendy one, downtown. Brick walls, Edison bulbs, ambient jazz playing softly, like a coffee shop with knives. You weren't planning to be here. Someone bought you a gift certificate, or maybe you signed up half-jokingly after a wine night. Either way, you're standing in front of a stainless steel counter next to a man named Ethan who's wearing a Kiss the Chef apron, unironically. Welcome to Pho Fundamentals, a hands-on Vietnamese broth experience. You try not to roll your eyes into another time zone. The instructor walks in. He's American, tall, enthusiastic. His name is Brandon or Brendan or something else that rhymes with ambition. He claps his hands. "Let's make some pho, y'all." You freeze for a moment. But then he starts talking, and surprisingly, he knows his stuff. He talks about bones, Mirror-Over's knuckle, about the importance of roasting ginger, about why you should char the onion directly on the burner. He passes around small cups of toasted spices, makes everyone smell them. Star anise is the backbone of pho, he says, but too much and it'll taste like Christmas regret. You laugh, against your better judgment. Ethan, next to you, raises his hand. "Can I add garlic?" The instructor doesn't even flinch. "No, garlic's for your stir fries. Pho's cleaner. Garlic will cloud the broth in your soul." You nod silently. "Okay, Brandon, that's 1 point for you." The class moves slowly. People are awkward with the cleavers. The bones are a bit too cold. Someone accidentally throws away the scallions, but there's sincerity in the air, a genuine attempt to understand. Your group starts the broth. Water, bones, onions, ginger. Spice pouch fish sauce, a delicate stream, not a waterfall. You catch Ethan about to dump the whole bottle. You stop him. He mouths sorry. Hours pass, literally. There's a timer. You skim foam. You taste, adjust, stir, and you begin to feel it. Not just the broth warming, but the shift. You're no longer annoyed. You're invested. Ethan is asking you how long your family cooks the bones. Someone across the room says, I didn't know pho took this long. Someone else replies, that's why it tastes like something your mom would whisper to you. Historians won't document this class. They won't write about Ethan or his overly enthusiastic apron. They won't quote Brandon's rant about the spiritual danger of overfish saucing. But this is history. This is how pho moves. Through people trying, fumbling, asking, listening. You strain the broth, the class goes quiet. Everyone takes a sip of their creation. Eyes widen, shoulders drop. One woman exhales like she's been holding her breath since childhood. It's not perfect, of course not. But it's close. You sit down with your bowl. You eat in silence. There's no camera, no branding, no caption. Just heat and breath and the soft clink of chapsticks against ceramic. You think of your mother, making broth before sunrise. You think of your grandfather who said a good pho could heal the kind of sadness you didn't know how to name. You think of every kitchen you've stood in, every spoon you've raised to your lips, and realize they all brought you here. To this trendy kitchen with a man named Ethan and a surprisingly wise Brandon. You finish your bowl, they hand out recipe cards at the end. You take one, you don't need it, but you fold it carefully. Put it in your jacket pocket like a note from someone you used to be. Because it's not just broth, it's something you're learning to carry forward. It's lunchtime on a Tuesday and you're in line at a university cafeteria. The sneeze guard gleams, the trays clatter, everything smells vaguely like warmed-up ambition and half-forgotten assignments. You're scanning the food stations, grilled cheese, pizza, burrito bowls, and then you see it. A banner with Comic Sans letters printed across a pull-down vinyl sign. P.O. Bar. Today only. You pause. Really? You shuffle forward, curiosity slightly outweighing skepticism. Ahead of you, someone's piling bean sprouts onto what looks like an extremely cautious bowl of soup. Behind the counter, a cafeteria worker ladles broth from a giant silver pot, wearing gloves and a look that says, I went to training for this. When it's your turn, she asks, beef or tofu? You blink, beef. Any noodles? Any, as in types. You glance down at three kinds, regular rice noodles, udon, and zoodles. Zucchini spirals that look confused to be here. You go traditional. She ladles the broth, adds sliced beef that looks pre-cooked. A sprig of cilantro, some green onion, offers you a lime wedge like it's a diplomatic gesture. You take the bowl, sit at a plastic table beneath flickering fluorescent lights, and you sip. You're prepared to be disappointed, but you're not. It's not restaurant pho. It's not your family's pho. But it's pho-ish enough to pass. The broth is light but warm. The beef is timid. The noodles are perfectly unremarkable. Still, there's something comforting about seeing pho show up here, of all places. You glance around. Two students are poking at their bowls like they're deciphering a puzzle. One guy is carefully removing all the herbs. A girl with a laptop is Googling, how do you eat pho? You hear a triumphant oh when she figures out the lime goes in the broth. You sip again. The broth needs help. It's missing something. Depth, darkness, the lingering sense of having been simmered while someone told a story nearby. But still, it's not bad. And more importantly, it's here. In a college cafeteria on a Tuesday. You pull out your phone and search the campus dining website. There it is. New this semester, Global Flavors Rotation. Bringing the world to your tray. You smile. Historians might gloss over this development. They'll talk about immigration patterns, restaurant openings, maybe culinary awards. But they won't mention the moment pho got institutionalized, made it into universities, meal plans, corporate campuses. They won't mention how second-gen students emailed dining services with gentle or furious feedback, or how a food manager tried to figure out what charred ginger meant using only YouTube, or how a Vietnamese American freshman walked into the cafeteria, smelled the broth, and felt something break. Then mint. You glance back at the line. It's longer now. People are intrigued. Someone shouts, yo, this slaps. You don't correct them. Instead, you take another bite. A bit of beef, a bit of nostalgia, a bit of cultural diplomacy in a plastic bowl. It's not perfect. But perfection was never the point. You finish your lunch, the table smells faintly of star anise and cafeteria-grade soy sauce. You wipe your mouth with a paper napkin and think, pho is doing fine. It's going where it needs to go. Even here, especially here. You're scrolling, just mindlessly scrolling, and then it finds you. A post, a tweet, a meme, a photo of two bowls. One brimming with deep golden broth and herbs spilling like a garden. The other a dark, cloudy mess with ramen noodles, chopped carrots, and a hard-boiled egg. The caption reads, Pho versus ramen, who wins the soup war? You groan, deeply, the kind of groan that comes from years of cultural deja vu. Welcome to the internet's next great debate. Not war, not economics, not climate collapse. Soup. You click the comments. Mistake. There they are. Pho is just knockoff ramen. Ramen is greasy. Pho is pure. Pho doesn't even have flavor unless you dump stuff in. Bro, ramen eggs go hard though. Vietnamese food is underrated, period. Pho is just hipster soup now. Change my mind. Ramen, pho. And then nestled between sarcasm and serious hot takes. Pho is my mom's hands. Ramen is my college years. They both matter. You stop, reread it once, twice, because that's actually kind of beautiful. You lean back. This is where we are now. Pho's not just a dish, it's a fandom, a side in a casual battle that no one remembers starting. You think back to the 90s when pho was barely known outside Vietnamese communities. Back then it wasn't battling ramen, it was battling invisibility. Now, it's trending. You look up Phash Pho's ramen toke and find 348,000 videos, people slurping, reacting, arguing, comparing. One guy says he switches sides depending on the weather. A woman films herself crying while eating pho, whispering, it tastes like home, and I don't even know why. Historians might skip this part, the soup wars. They might say it was silly, just internet noise. But you know better. You know identity is forged in kitchens and comment sections, in slow-simmered broth and fast-flying tweets, in heated TikTok duets where someone mispronounces pho, and someone else stitches it just to correct them gently, and sometimes not so gently. And underneath the snark, the emojis, the rival hashtags is something fragile, recognition. Because if people are fighting over it, it means they care. If they're arguing flavor profiles, they're tasting. If they're passionate, it means the dish has meaning. You remember when ramen had its glow up, the years it dominated menus. The egg, the tear, the Instagram drizzle of black garlic oil. Pho never got the same dramatics, but it never needed them. Pho doesn't perform, pho endures. You scroll on, find a meme that reads, ramen is a party, pho is therapy. You chuckle, another, ramen is for when you're hungry, pho is for when you're grieving. You pause, close the app, and suddenly, you want a bowl, not to win anything, not to pick a side, but because all this talk reminded you of how pho hugs from the inside out. You walk to the kitchen, start pulling out the spices, because sometimes the best argument isn't a post, it's a pot, simmering, quiet, sure of itself. First thing you notice is the sign. It's soft pink, lowercase font, minimalist. It says, Pho Studio. Yes, with the diacritic floating like an afterthought. No restaurant. No noodle house. Just studio like they're sculpting clay, not boiling bones. You step inside. It smells clean, almost too clean, like ginger water and eucalyptus candles. The walls are whitewashed. The menu is on a touchscreen tablet embedded in the counter. The woman behind it greets you in perfect English, wearing a linen apron and tiny gold hoop earrings. There's lo-fi music playing overhead, maybe a slowed-down remix of a K-drama theme song. You're not in a pho shop, you're in a concept space. The menu lists 4 items: classic beef pho, vegan pho, keto bone broth pho, pho light, made with zucchini noodles. Naturally, you raise an eyebrow. Then 2, but curiosity, as always, is stronger than skepticism. You order the vegan pho. Robot brings it to your table. You're serious. The little tray on wheels whirs over and stops in front of you, chirping, here is your pho. Enjoy your experience. You stare at the bowl. It's beautiful. Clear broth. Mushrooms shaped like stars. Dainty herbs arranged with tweezers. No oil slick. No floating beef fat. The noodles are made from kelp, apparently. The lime wedge is grilled. You taste. Slowly. It's not bad. In fact, it's strangely good. Not pho as you know it, but something adjacent, like a cousin who moved to Scandinavia and started wearing muted colors. You sip, and you feel a tiny ripple of confusion, because this bowl isn't trying to be traditional. It's not pretending to be your mother's recipe. It's not even using fish sauce. It's a reinterpretation, a reinvention, a responds to everything that's changed. Diet trends, wellness culture, urban aesthetics. The slow but certain commodification of heritage into lifestyle. You glance around. People are eating in silence. One girl photographs her bowl from 5 angles. A guy in a beanie is sipping bone broth from a ceramic cup like it's espresso. No one's speaking Vietnamese, but you hear words like anti-inflammatory and macro-balanced, and you don't hate it. You're surprised. You think about how pho has always adapted, from buffalo bones to beef, from charcoal fires to crock pots, from aluminum pots in refugee camps to this. Whatever this is, historians probably won't know what to do with this place. Too modern for the nostalgia narrative, too clean for the survival story, too boutique to be authentic. But authenticity has always been a moving target. Maybe this is part of the journey too, because pho isn't just about tradition, it's about translation. You sip again. The broth lacks the punch of fish sauce, but it has clarity, brightness. It doesn't cling, it dances. You finish your bowl. On your way out, there's a small shelf with jars, dried spice blends, vegan broth starter kits, and tote bags that say "Pho me, pho you." You laugh quietly. You won't buy one, but you won't forget it. Outside, the world is loud again. Cars, sirens, concrete heat. You walk away, and in your gut, the broth still hums softly, light, unfamiliar, but warm. Pho has made it to the wellness aisle, to the cleanse, to the influencer, to the Zenified city menu. And while you're not sure what to make of it all, you respect the broth's ability to survive even here, even like this. You walk in at 11:47 p.m. and it's packed. Neon flickers over the glass door. PHF 54, open 24/7. The 5 is crooked. The 4 is missing its tail. The open sign buzzes like it's tired but refuses to quit. Inside, the air is heavy with broth, sweat, chili oil, and the unmistakable smell of wet linoleum. Tables are full, every single one. A woman in flip-flops is taking orders with a notepad she's using backward. A toddler is asleep across 2 chairs in the corner. A college kid with a laptop is typing while holding chopsticks in his mouth. You find the only available seat wedged at the end of a long table between a man in a trucker cap eating in silence and a woman on FaceTime yelling about someone's wedding shoes. You sit. No one asks if you're joining them. You're just here now. And you wait. No menus. No explanations. Just the woman who walks past you, points and says, "Tai go." You nod. Fine. Because you know the rules. A few minutes later, a bowl is placed in front of you with the satisfying clack of ceramic against tabletop. No smile. No warning. Just heat. You look down. The broth is deep. Unapologetic. Like it's been through something. Beef is floating in slow motion. The noodles hide underneath, waiting. There's a plate of herbs, yes, but wilted from the journey. The hoisin bottle is sticky. The sriracha bottle is nearly empty. The spoon is slightly bent, and yet, nothing in this world has ever looked better to you. You lean in, you inhale, and you slurp. The broth hits your throat like memory soaked in fat and time. It's peppery, it's salty, it doesn't ask for approval, it just is. The noodles are cooked exactly right, not al dente, not overdone. They collapse with grace. You add lime, just a touch. Rip basil with your fingers. You could be asleep in an hour. You could also stay here until dawn. This is not curated pho. This is not branded, not plated, not sponsored. This is pho that does not care about your opinion. You glance around. A man in a security uniform is devouring his bowl like it owes him rent. 2 women are splitting a second order of tendon. The kid with the laptop is now asleep, head on keyboard. The woman on FaceTime has switched topics. Now she's talking about her dog's haircut. And yet, through the chaos, everyone is eating with the kind of focus usually reserved for prayer. Historians rarely talk about the pho joints that never close. The ones lit by tired bulbs and running off caffeine, cash, and commitment. The ones that feed cab drivers at 3 a.m., nurses coming off shift, drunk students, night owls, heartbreakers, and heartbroken alike. They won't mention how the staff changes over in seamless rotation, how the broth is passed from hand to hand, shift to shift, like a torch in a sacred relay. How someone's job is just to skim the fat, hour after hour. You keep eating. The woman with the notepad walks by again. Them calm. You nod. You don't need more, but you want more. This isn't just food. It's fuel. It's language. It's anger. You sip the last of the broth. It clings to your lips, leaving you marked, salted, softened, slightly changed. You leave cash on the table. No receipt. No tipping screen. just folded bills and the quiet dignity of fair exchange. You step into the night. The street is dark. The sign behind you buzzes louder now. A couple walks past you on the way in, laughing about how this place looks sketchy but smells like heaven. You smile. They're right. Pho doesn't sleep, and sometimes neither do you. You see it on the menu. Do a double take. Pho combo special includes donut plus coffee. You stare at the line again just to be sure. Yes, that's what it says. Pho and a donut together, as if that's always been a thing. You look up at the sign above the counter. Happy Pho and Donut House. It's in an old strip mall. Font, cheerful. Building, not a sun-faded awning. A window with Vietnamese words written in dry erase marker. Inside, a glass donut case full of glossy sugar spirals, sprinkled bars, and cream-filled mysteries. And behind that, a steam-filled kitchen where someone is absolutely cooking real pho. Your brain stalls for a moment. Donuts and pho, breakfast and dinner, dessert and broth. But your stomach is curious and your heart is confused but open. You order the combo. The woman at the register doesn't blink. She just points, beef or chicken. Beef, regular donut or maple bar, maple bar. Okay, you sit. Your tray arrives. On it, a deep bowl of pho thai with all the proper garnishes. A maple bar, fluffy and glossy. A cup of drip coffee, dark and over-extracted in exactly the right way. You don't know where to start. You go broth first because you're you. It's surprisingly rich, peppery, layered with a slight hint of cinnamon that lingers. The beef is tender, the noodles just chewy enough. You add herbs with your fingers, a squeeze of lime. The smell fills the little booth you're in, pressing against the faded vinyl like memory expanding. Then, the donut. You bite. It's soft and sweet. The maple glaze sticks to your lips like a mischievous idea. It's good. Too good. You sip the coffee next. Bitter. Hot. Bitter again. You love it. And just like that, something clicks. You're not here for a tasting menu. You're here for someone's life in 3 items. You glance around. There's a woman in scrubs eating pho while dipping her glazed donut into her coffee. A teenager nearby tears bites off a jelly filled like it's survival, not snack. A man in the corner has a bang me in one hand and a cruller in the other. No one looks surprised. Only you. And then you realize something. This isn't fusion. This is collage. If you think about it, how many Vietnamese immigrants bought failing donut shops from retiring Americans in the 80s and 90s? How they learned to make glazed rings with the same precision they used for Bon Tio. How they worked pre-dawn shifts making donuts by the dozen, then went home to cook pho for their families. How, over time, the 2 lives merged, breakfast and broth, survival and sweetness. Historians sometimes call this accidental cuisine, a byproduct of diaspora, a side effect of hustle. But sitting here now, you know better. This is intentional, not because someone planned it, but because someone kept going. You slurp more broth, take another bite of donut. The sugar mixes with the salt, the anise with the mayonnaise, with the maple, the fatigue, with the comfort. It's strange and strangely good. You finish the meal slowly, not because you're full, because you're fascinated. You leave a tip, push open the heavy glass door. The outside smells like car exhaust and sun-baked parking lot, but inside you there's a sweetness now. A warmth that isn't just from the broth. Pho and donuts, why not 2 stories, 1 tray? Still hot, still real. You weren't expecting to see it on TV, but there it is, on Food Network, of all places. A glossy intro sequence, dramatic music swelling, fast cuts of flame-kissed bones, splashes of fish sauce and herbs fluttering like they're modeling for a salad catalog. The host, overly excited and suspiciously clean, turns to the camera and says, "Today, we're exploring one of the most comforting soups in the world, Vietnamese pho." You freeze. Your bowl of leftovers goes cold in your lap. Because this isn't a small YouTube video anymore. This isn't a college blog post or a TikTok recipe hack. This is national cable TV, broadcast to homes filled with air fryers and banana bread fatigue. You watch. The host walks into a well-lit restaurant in New York. The kind where exposed brick and decorative ferns are as important as the food. She greets the chef, a Vietnamese American with sharp tattoos, a soft smile, and a clear understanding of lighting. He starts talking about his mom, how she taught him to char ginger on a metal grate over the gas flame, how she made him strain the broth 3 times, how she made pho not just on Sundays, but on days when something broke inside someone. He says pho is more than soup. It's memory that you eat. You exhale. Okay, good start. They show close-ups, spices being toasted, oxtail sizzling. By its start, Annie's spinning in slow motion like it's in a perfume commercial. It's a little much, but you don't mind. Then comes the tasting segment. The host takes a spoonful, slurps loudly, and gasps like she's discovered a lost civilization. It's got so much depth, she says. It's like savory tea. You blink. Tea. Then she adds, I feel like I'm being hugged by flavor. You cringe a little, but she's not wrong. It's awkward, but it's earnest. Then you realize this is how it happens. Not with a bang, not with full accuracy, but with curiosity. And cameras. Pho is on television now, with subtitles, with stylized fonts, with soft lighting and voiceovers saying things like centuries of tradition in one humble bowl. Historians will probably footnote this, how pho entered the mainstream American food lexicon around this era, how it appeared on top 10 lists, how celebrity chefs mispronounced it at award shows. What they might miss is what you're feeling right now, pride, and something else, vulnerability, because this is your food, your family's food, and it's being explained to people who just learned how to pronounce banh mi last week. You worry. Will they simplify it? Will they freeze it, rebrand it, slap it into a box at Trader Joe's? Maybe, but you also see the comment section. Viewers saying, tried it for the first time, I cried a little. Can't believe I waited this long to try pho. Where can I find this in Minneapolis? My neighbor is Vietnamese. She made this for me once when I was sick. I'll never forget it. You pause the TV. The host is raising her chopsticks, smiling at the chef. And you smile too. Pho is on TV, but more importantly, pho is being felt. It's not just flavor anymore. It's footprint, it's fingerprint, it's memory that reached the airwaves. And somewhere in a living room far from Saigon, far from your mother's stove, someone is sipping broth for the first time. Eyes wide, heart cracked open. Let them taste. Let them learn. Pho is ready for the screen. You're in a rec center. Foldable chairs. Fluorescent lights, a whiteboard with the words, Viet Cooking Night, Learn to Make Pho. There are name tags, clipboards, a slow-moving fan in the corner that seems more symbolic than functional. You sit next to a woman who's never held a cleaver, and a man who keeps calling noodles pasta. The instructor walks in. She's older, Vietnamese, wearing a floral blouse and an apron that's seen real work. She smiles. Okay, Laidua, let's make something better than takeout. Her voice is warm, dry, like a joke that's about to become important. Everyone leans forward. She doesn't start with the spices. She starts with a story. First time I make pho, she says, holding up a blackened onion in one hand, was in refugee camp. We only have powder, fish sauce, and some dreams. The class laughs, then hushes. She walks everyone through the bones. The rinsing, the roasting, the simmering, the patience. She pulls out a spice pouch and passes it around. Smell that. That's your childhood if you're lucky. You hear gasps. Even the pasta guy nods. There's no projector, no branding, no downloadable PDF recipe. Just this woman, her hands, and a pot big enough to swim in. You stir the broth. She corrects your hand position. You try again. She watches, approves. Better. Around you, people begin chopping onions too thick, basil too early, noodles too short. She gently redoes every mistake without ever making anyone feel wrong. Then she says you don't rush the broth. You listen to it. Someone asks, how long do you cook it? She shrugs until it forgives you. You write that down, even though you know you'll remember. Later, when the broth is bubbling and the room smells like memory boiling down to its most honest form, she tells everyone to sit. She serves. It's not perfect pho. The broth didn't get the full day. The beef's a little rushed, the herbs wilted under fluorescent lights. But it's good. It's real. You sip, slowly, like the first time, or the 50th. The room is quiet, then someone speaks. This reminds me of something. I don't know what. The instructor nods. You will. Historians won't document this class. They won't list the address of this community center. They won't know that an older woman with strong hands and a tired laugh taught 16 strangers how to peel ginger the right way. But this is how the knowledge moves. Not through books, not through fame, but through aunties. Through shared ladles. Through no, not like that, like this. Through chopsticks passed hand to hand. From the ones who know to the ones who want to. You clean your bowl. Wash your dish. Thank her. She pats your shoulder. Next week she says, they're making kwaikwan. You smile. But tonight you walk home with the the scent of pho in your clothes, and a new understanding in your chest. Recipes are written in steam and stories, and you're learning how to read. It starts with a headline. Who really owns pho? The battle over authenticity heats up. You click it, of course you always do. It's a think piece. Of course it is. With words like culinary appropriation and cultural gatekeeping bolded every few paragraphs. It cites pop-up chefs in Brooklyn. It quotes someone from a podcast. It references a restaurant in Portland called Forward Thinking, where the broth is made with beet juice and oat milk. You blink slowly and you feel it, that feeling, tight in your chest, like someone's arranged the furniture of your childhood without asking, because now everyone wants to talk about pho, but not everyone wants to listen. The article keeps going. Does anyone have the right to claim authenticity? Is pho evolving or being erased? Is a $17 bowl of beet pho a love letter or a parody? You close the tab, not out of anger, but out of fatigue. Because for you, pho never asked to be owned. It was made, then remade, then shared, and carried, and whispered into every pot with more instinct than ego. You remember your mom saying, just taste it, you'll know. Not just cite it, not just brand it, not just fight about it, just taste. You scroll again. Another headline. White chef wins award for reinventing pho. You feel your jaw tighten. Then you see a comment. My grandma has been doing that, has 50 yet for 50 years, and nobody gave her a medal. And below that, she never needed one. You smile, a little sad, a little proud. This is the new battleground. Not kitchen versus kitchen, but meaning versus marketing. Historians will probably love this stuff. The discourse, the backlash, the layers of sociology and salt. They'll quote the award shows, they'll cite the Yelp reviews. They'll interview chefs with perfectly curated origin stories and creative twists on pho that involve truffle oil and something foamed. But they won't see the woman stirring broth in a basement kitchen in Westminster, still using the same dented ladle from 1981. They won't smell the patient fire of a man in San Jose who roasts his onions over charcoal every morning at 5 a.m. They won't hear the quiet anger in a teenager's voice when their cafeteria serves pho with ranch dressing for fun. You think of all the bowls you've eaten, the ones that held you when you didn't have the words, the ones that tasted like apology, the ones that reminded you your name had flavor. You whisper it to yourself now. Pho. Soft, breath-like, intimate. You don't say it to correct anyone. You say it to remember. Because pho was never about ownership, it was about offering. The careful slicing, the hours of simmer, the placing of herbs, just so, not for flair, but for you. You don't need it to be declared authentic. You just need it to be made with intention and eaten with respect. You close your laptop, you walk to the kitchen, you pull out the spice pouch again. And this time you don't rush. Because some bowls aren't defended, they're lived. You step inside and something feels off. At first glance, it's all there. The wood-paneled walls, the smell of broth, subtle but present. The familiar clatter of utensils behind the counter. But then you look closer. The menu is entirely in English. The font is minimalist. The photos are perfect bowls of pho, lit like perfume ads. No plastic chapsticks, no squeeze bottles, no buzzing ceiling fans. You walk up to the counter. The young man behind it smiles brightly. Welcome to Mod Pho, he says. Can I interest you in our signature bowl today? It's pho with Wagyu brisket, bone marrow foam, and a hint of activated charcoal oil. Gluten-free, of course. You stare at him like he just suggested putting ketchup in che. You glance around. The place is packed. None of the staff speak Vietnamese. None of the customers look uncomfortable. You're the only one who feels displaced. You order the most traditional-looking thing on the menu, Pho Hanoi Classic. He smiles and says, good choice. That one's infused with smoked shiitake reduction and vegan beef essence. You don't know whether to cry or Instagram it. The bowl arrives. It's beautiful. Ceramic hand thrown by a local artisan. Beef slices draped across the noodles like silk scarves. A garnish of micro cilantro in a single edible flower. You take a bite. It's fine. It's clean. It's balanced. It's also been run through 5 marketing meetings and a filter. You miss the old bowls. The ones served by a woman who called you Khan whether she knew you or not. The ones with slightly chipped edges, with too much scallion or not enough broth, with the kind of chaos that felt like home. You sip the broth, it's clever. Too clever. You can taste the decisions, the restraint, the branding. There's no story in it, just strategy. Historians might call this the boutique era of pho, where culture gets curated, where flavor is polished and identities are palatable. They'll write about how pho entered high-end markets, appeared in design magazines, became part of elevated street food tours led by people who've never walked the actual streets. They won't write about how it feels to sit in a pho shop with no one yelling in the kitchen, no child running under the tables, no laminated menus with fingerprints on page 3, no accidental oversalt because someone got distracted telling a story. You push the bowl away, still half full. It's not bad, but it doesn't see you. You leave quietly. No one nods goodbye. No one asks if you want to take the rest home. You step out into the cold and pull your jacket tight. You whisper to yourself, not angry, just certain. This isn't pho. It's a cosplay. And somewhere inside your stomach is still waiting for the real thing. It's the most expensive bowl of pho you've ever seen. $28, not including tax, including tip, not including the unspoken fee of betraying your ancestors. You're in a restaurant where the table is stone, real stone, cold to the touch. Your chair weighs more than a scooter. Ambient jazz plays at a volume meant to suggest sophistication, but mostly makes you feel like you should whisper. You open the menu. The listing reads, Pho Deluxe, Wagyu brisket, black garlic truffle oil, marble egg, house-foraged herbs, smoked bone marrow broth. You check the back, no apology printed anywhere. You order it because curiosity, because what if the bowl arrives under a glass dome? A glass dome, the server lifts it with theatrical flair, releasing a puff of smoke like it's a magic trick. Someone at the next table claps, you pretend not to hear them. The broth shimmers, dark, rich, and disturbingly still. The meat is arranged like a floral arrangement. There's a single raw quail egg in the middle. It blinks at you. The noodles, hidden beneath it all, like shame. You take a sip. The broth hits your tongue with the intensity of a TED Talk. It's good. It's also confusing. There's a hint of sweetness, an echo of the real thing. But then comes the truffle oil, so loud, like it showed up late to a quiet party and kicked the door in. You can taste the bones. You can also taste the budget meeting that made this bowl happen. You chew slowly. Is it pho? Technically, but it doesn't slurp. It doesn't soften. It doesn't sigh. It poses. Around you, people are murmuring about umami and structure. Someone asks if they can get the noodles replaced with sunchoke ribbons. Someone else says they love how clean it feels. You stir your spoon. It makes no sound. Too much refinement, not enough resistance. You think back to a plastic table, to a woman handing you a bowl with fingers that smelled like fish sauce and devotion, to a broth with soul, not spectacle, to a price tag with numbers that felt like sharing, not showing off. Historians will write about this moment, about the pho renaissance in upscale dining, the elevation, the reinvention, the monetization of memory. They will say pho transcended. They will say it became worthy of fine dining. But you will remember this. The most expensive bowl of pho you ever ate didn't hug you back. You finish half, pay the bill, leave a tip that hurts more than the broth ever did. Outside the air is cold, your stomach is warm, but not full. And deep down you know, the best pho still lives somewhere else, probably in a shop with cracked tiles, where the broth smells stronger, and the bill never needs a comma. It's a small space tucked between a nail salon and a Vietnamese video rental shop that somehow still exists. You walk past twice before you even see the door. No neon, no fancy fonts, just a hand-painted sign. Pho Ba. That's it. Painted red letters on yellow metal. Inside, red plastic stools, chrome-legged tables, ceiling fans spinning with all their might but still losing the battle. You pause in the doorway because this place doesn't look new. It looks right. It smells like star anise and chopped green onions and something deeper, like hours, years, maybe decades. The woman behind the counter looks up. She doesn't smile. She just says, "Tai Nam Go Gun." You nod. There are no menus here, just muscle memory. You sit. The air is humid with soup and small talk. A man 2 tables over is speaking Vietnamese so fast it feels like music. Teenagers are laughing over bowls too big for their hands. There's a toddler on the floor holding a spoon like it's a toy airplane. You don't care. You're home. The bowl arrives. No flourish. No tray. Just soup. The broth is dark. Honest. Not crystal clear. Not trying to be. The fat clings to the surface in little swirls that look like fingerprints. The meat isn't perfectly sliced. The noodles are slightly tangled. The herbs come in a bucket, not a basket, and it's perfect. You slurp, and just like that, you remember. This is what pho used to be before it was asked to pose for the camera. Before the price tags and the truffle foam and the bone broth buzzwords. This is restoration, not innovation. You ask the woman how long she's been running the place. She shrugs. Since my much hit, 1986, maybe earlier. I don't count. Then she walks off to refill someone's tea. A few minutes later, a younger woman appears, maybe late 20s. She's wiping down tables, answering questions in English, switching to Vietnamese without missing a beat. She says her name's Tao. She says we closed for a while, tried doing other things, but the regulars kept asking, so we reopened. You ask why. She looks around and says, quietly, because people need this kind of place, especially now. You nod. She nods back. No TED Talk needed, no brand guide, no limited edition broth drops, just soup. Historians may not notice this place. No press releases, no James Beard nominations, no investors, just the daily labor of feeding people without performance. But this is where the pho revival actually lives. Not in reinvention, but in return. You finish every drop. You say, come on. The older woman grunts like she didn't hear it, but she did. Outside, the strip mall hums on. Nail guns, faded posters, the smell of motor oil. But your chest is warm now. The broth did its job. You walk back to your car. The sun sliding down over the power lines, and you think, sometimes to move forward, you have to cook backward. Back to the bone. Back to the pot. Back to the table, where no one ever asked you to explain why you needed another bowl. They just filled it. You're standing in front of a dictionary, not a dusty one. Not a school book, but the kind Google shows you in a single white box, black text on clean background, as if truth could be that simple. Pho, noun, a Vietnamese soup made with beef or chicken broth, rice noodles, and herbs. You stare. That's it. All those mornings of roasting bones, all those afternoons straining broth through time and cheesecloth, all those nights sitting over a bowl that understood you better than most people, and it gets 20 words. You scroll further. A voice reads it aloud. Pho, not pho. Finally, progress. You glance below. Did you mean pho? The irony punches you square in the memory. You close the window, but still, you sit there for a moment turning it over. Because it happened. Pho made it into the dictionary, into spell check, into vocabulary tests and wordle guesses and crossword clues. It's official now, legitimized, anglicized, canonical. Historians might see this as a milestone, a sign of full assimilation, a soup that started in alleyways, then refugee camps, then backyard kitchens and late-night garages, is now a word recognized by machines. But you're not sure whether to be proud or protective, because being defined also means being reduced. No mention of the silence before the first sip, no reference to the sweat behind the stove, no hint of how pho sounds different when whispered by your mother after a hard day. No entry for the version made with love, but no meat, because war had taken that too. Just a line, just a sound, just a word. Still, you can't deny the feeling. Something about seeing pho in that box, next to words like phobia and photograph, means you're here. Your food is no longer foreign. It's searchable, spellable, standardized. And that somehow makes you miss the days when it wasn't. You remember when your classmate looked at your lunch and wrinkled their nose. When your backpack smelled like fish sauce for 3 weeks. When you practiced saying beef noodle soup instead of pho so you wouldn't have to explain. Now, everyone knows, or thinks they do. But maybe that's okay. Because for every one-line definition, there are millions of bowls out there telling the story better. Every slurp is a footnote. Every garnish is a dialect. Every broth is a paragraph that refused to be shortened. You walk to the kitchen. There's a pot simmering. You didn't plan it. You just needed it. You lift the lid and the smell, that rich, untranslatable smell, fills the room like a sentence you didn't know how to finish. No dictionary needed. The table is small, wobbly, red plastic, faded from sunlight and generations of wiping. You're in a house somewhere in California. The curtains are too short. The floor creaks in that specific way that says, someone raised children here. And at the center of it all, a bowl of pho, not yours, not just for you, but for them. Across the table sits your child, legs too long for that tiny chair, eyes that carry your smile but not your accent. They stir the broth gently like they know it means something, even if they don't know what. smells like your mom's house, they say. You pause, then laugh, soft. Yeah, it does. You made it the old way this time. Bones roasted, onions scorched over open flame, star anise cracked with the back of a spoon. No shortcuts, no substitutions, no oat milk. You even let the broth sit overnight. It tastes like memory, deep, a little cloudy, exactly how it should. They take a bite, then another. Then they stop and ask, wait, is this the one Grandpa used to make? You nod. He learned it from his mom. Then suddenly you're both quiet, because what's in this bowl isn't just broth, it's a river, a migration, a resilience that survived borders and bombings, refugee camps and cafeterias, hipsters and hashtags. You sip, slowly, watching them eat, listening to the quiet rhythm of chopsticks against bowl. Outside the world spins. Inside there is steam and warmth, and a strange peace that doesn't ask for language. You didn't plan this moment, but it came. Like Pho always does, historians may write about the waves, the exits, the arrivals, the headlines and hashtags, but they'll miss the kitchen smells, the small bowls, the teaching moments that happen between bites. This bowl, it's not the end of the story, it's just another telling to someone who never left, but still inherited the journey. They finish, sip the last of the broth with both hands, then look at you. Can we make it together next time? You smile. That's it. That's the future. Not in perfection, not in pronunciation, not in price or polish or trending tags. Just one bowl, two hands, 3 generations whispering through steam. You reach across the table, collect the spoons, wipe the splash of broth with a napkin too thin to matter, then say, next time you're roasting the onions. They groan. You grin, and something in the air settles. The scent of cloves, the faint sting of chili, the echo of a recipe that's never been written down but will never be forgotten. Pho doesn't need to be remembered, it just needs to be made. Again, and again, and again. And as night drapes quietly over the windows and the dishes dry in the rack, the last warmth of broth hums gently in your chest. End of script. Sweet dreams.